Hey everyone! You just caught me admiring this vinyl figure of Ultraman Dyna. Man, he looks so cool from every angle! I wish they would make a whole season for him. I started my love for Ultraman with Dyna. As far as I can remember, I watched the Dyna DVDs, and they were what I grew up with, meaning they have a special place in my heart. So recently, I decided to give the series a rewatch to hopefully shed some new light on it. Of course, this would contain spoilers for Ultraman Tiga and Ultraman Dyna. Let's begin. Firstly, let's talk the setting. In the first episode, we are introduced to the Neo Frontier universe, continuing the story in the same universe as Ultraman Tiga's. There's a nice gap bridger in the usage of the Guts' wings as the training jets. Now, it's important to remember that by the end of Tiga, the ruler of darkness was vanquished and humanity must move forward into the new era. It's very logical for that next step to focus on the actual advancement of humanity, which is immediately shown to us, the audience, by showing us the progress on Mars. There's a contrast here with the first episode of Tiga, where Guts was investigating an ancient pyramid, while in Dyna, we see that frontiers for the future are being developed. This ties to the overall themes of this season, which I will talk about later. This season features our resident defense team, Super Guts, the direct successor of, you guessed it, Guts. Guts. These guys are who I grew up with, so watching them even now feels very natural. But I think that these team members genuinely have good chemistry and distinct enough personalities from one another. Sometimes their acting can be over the top. But my mom said it's because it needs to communicate their characters well to children, which I don't think is a bad thing, because they each manage to leave their own mark on the team. Except Karya, which I always confuse him with Asuka when he's wearing his helmet. But at least he does get a few badass scenes. Their great crew dynamic is on full display in the mid-season finale, The Krakow Won't Surface, which is still one of the best arcs in the whole Ultra series to me so far. Each crewmate is put in a situation they aren't familiar with and must overcome the overwhelming odds to win. Mai, the bridge bunny of Super Guts, who usually sits behind the computer and is the communications expert, has to gather the courage to launch herself inside a pod to get access to the computer. Captain Hibiki, who is away from his crew, is unable to brave the odds with them, while usually he's quite the hands-on captain. And even Dyna has to fight in extreme cold, a weakness which most Ultras are known to be weak to. Not to mention, Super Guts themselves has a lot of quirkiness, like Love Moss, Hanejiro, and heck, the whole Mountain Gulliver episode, making them a very memorable crew in my opinion. Dash from Ultraman Max reminds me of these guys with their antics, and even Mebius' limb elecking episode felt similar to Hanejiro's, meaning Super Guts does have an impact on the franchise. Overall, I have to say my favorite crew member is Captain Hibiki. I just like the characters who can come up with wise things to say while definitely not looking like the type that can give advice. More importantly, he's also one of the most over-the-top guys when it comes to his acting, which I find quite charming. Also, I was super shocked when they revealed that he had a daughter, and even more so when they gave him another later on. Props goes to Ryo as well, such a cool character, and I really liked her dynamic with Asuka even though it felt like she was borderline hating on him for no reason. On to the vehicles. I feel that the Guts Eagle is one of the best jets I've ever seen in the Ultra series. Well, thanks to the opening, I still think that each of the jets are named after Flash, Miracle and Strong respectively. But you have to admit that they do fit quite well. But then again, even though the Guts Eagle is still the best, I feel like all of the Ultra series jets and mechs are really cool. Now there's this interesting issue they brought up somewhere in the middle of the show concerning Super Guts' role as Earth's Special Task Force. Now Super Guts stands for Super Global Unlimited Task Squad, which technically means that they aren't limited to military expertise and are more than just fighting monsters. A reporter claims that Super Guts leans more towards militarism, while the old Guts was actually primarily an exploration crew. I would have liked to see more of this issue played out, but it was just left at that unfortunately. In fact, after this, their firepower does increase, with the addition of the Alpha Superior and the Specium cannons. It would be really interesting if the series did manage to explore the role of Super Guts in the Neo Frontier universe. Next, let's talk with the main character, Shin Asuka. Asuka has since been a fan favourite because of his status as a hero of many people's childhoods and his appearances in newer media like in Ultra Galaxy Legends movie and the Orb Origin saga. But what about him in his first starring role? I like this guy. So Asuka starts off as a cocky greenhorn who has to learn to reflect in an episode dedicated to his attitude, aptly named Awaken Asuka. Many times has Asuka been shown to be reckless or even borderline dumb, but he has a compelling trait in his Ultra ability. Well, my interpretation of him is that Asuka doesn't quite feel that he's worthy of his own power, but he's super cocky about the rest of his abilities, like his piloting skills or his ability to be an officer of Super Guts. But instead he hides the thing that makes him the most special, his ability to become Ultraman Dyna. It almost feels like he knows that he isn't worthy of it. As Hibiki himself put it best, I feel like episode 3 should have happened a bit later in the series, while we have seen some more of his hot-headedness, and we need to see some more build up to it and flesh out the other relationships first for it to be even more meaningful. For example, like the relationship between the captain and Koda. I felt it was too early and ended up not having much impact on the rest of the show. See, Asuka still does stuff on his own. He has a character arc, which does show his growth progressively, but the problem is that whenever he isn't the focus, he reverts back to his brash self as if he never learned anything. But luckily the show gave us a superb enough ending which completed Asuka's journey from a selfish idiot to a selfless hero. Which I think this is what turned him into the legendary character he is in today's media. Now we're this far into the video and I haven't even talked about this series' titular Ultra, Ultraman Dyna. A Heisei Ultra, he can change into different colors to better suit the situation he's in. I love Ultraman Dyna. His design is just really pleasing to look at. Dyna's Miracle and Strong types really managed to sell their stat boosts better than Tiga's did. The lack of a lot of blue areas on Miracle type make him look lighter and emphasize the agility he's supposed to have, while even giving that mystic feel which he's supposed to embody with Miracle. The opposite holds true for Strong type, because the almost full body red coat makes him look more imposing and bulkier even if he wasn't padded. Ironically, to me Dyna looks more serious than Tiga does, despite their hosts' personalities. Maybe it's Tiga's elfish ears. Dyna continues the human Ultraman trend, meaning he is Asuka, which we see occasionally whenever he plays around and gives off peace signs. To me, it was weird that his signature finisher, the Solgen Ray, does not have any move patterns before it's fired, like Tiga's, Taro's, AT's, or even Ace's. My headcanon is that since Dyna is Asuka, him being impatient as he is never takes the time to charge up the Solgen Ray slowly, except that one time in the movies. But what I like the most about Dyna is what we don't know about him. I'm truly intrigued by Dyna because there has been no explanation at all as to where he came from. Is he Tiga's descendant? Is he from an ancient civilization? Is he even from this universe in the first place? I just like the fact that Dyna literally came out of nowhere, saved Asuka, and we still don't know what his original purpose was. And frankly, I don't want it explained. I like my Ultras mysterious. I know there's a new novel about Dyna's origins, but I still haven't decided how I feel about that. I guess it's time to mention the gripes people have with this show. So back then, a lot of the main gripes people have with this show is its lighter, funnier tone compared to Ultraman Tiga's. Now, I'm all for entertainment in an entertainment show. I honestly enjoyed the humor and lighter tone. I hate it if a show cheapens a good scene by peppering cheap jokes everywhere. I believe that didn't happen in this show. The funny parts were during appropriate moments, and the serious parts were still pretty serious. But I know that's not what people are really mad about. They're mad that the series was not as thoughtful and mature enough in terms of its characters, their story arcs, and plots compared to Tiga. This, to me, is pretty subjective. I do feel that Dyna does have its own good themes that build off of its predecessor. As I mentioned earlier, Tiga, his series, and his whole character is built off of the past. He himself came from the past, being an ancient Ultra. He fought villains from the past, facing ghosts of the past, while Dyna is about the future. Most of the villains he have are life forms scared of humanity's advance to the future. Well, this is related to Spume and even the Spheres. Zelganoid is a product of humanity's ambitions for the future, and Dyna himself is named the New Lite, with no backstory, and he even makes his mark in future installments, creating his own new legacy. This theme persists throughout the show, and there's a nice feel to it that ties the package really nicely. So the series finale addresses most of the themes and ends with a battle with the Spheres. I think the stuff with Zelganoid should have been longer though. That was easily the most interesting part of the 3-part finale. There's a noticeable shift in tone from the previous episode though, which I have to say bothered me a little, but it's still great. I'll admit the ending bummed me out a lot as a kid, since there wasn't a big triumphant moment like Tiga vs Gatanozoa or Gaia and Agul vs Zogu, but I am glad for this ending because it did give Dyna a chance to make comebacks in newer shows, and it just feels fitting for the story. Overall, the show accomplishes what it set out to do, to be an Ultraman show that is lighthearted, even more so than its predecessor. Well, is it a good show? It was entertaining to me. I didn't think it was a waste of time, so that's good enough for me. Is it a bad show? By all means, no. Well, of course there were some areas lacking, but it was fairly well done. All the special effects were top-notch as expected of Tsuburaya, and I think that's the best way to summarize this series, that it was good, not bad, but what it does here may be outshined by other Ultra series. It's just a shame that the series is sandwiched by Tiga, which the fandom often considers the best, and Gaia, which has masterfully written themes and story arcs. Also such a shame that he wasn't included in Fighting Evolution Rebirth, which I thought greatly robbed him of his fame back in the day. But I think it's best to just appreciate Dyna for the series it is. It had a story to tell, and that was of a bright future, a cheerful future, after the ruler of darkness had fallen. And the most important thing, it told the story well. Good series, would recommend. Well, now that I've finished the series, it's time to get back to admiring this figurine. Until next time.